All right, thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. We are continuing our coverage of Assembly Atlanta, 135 acres, meant to be really a big part of the Hollywood of the South. We're talking about 22 sound stages in this complex, which is set in Doraville, and it's really hoped to revitalize Doraville. In 1945, there was the General Assembly plant that was built there and brought many jobs to the community, but it closed its doors and shut down in 2008, leaving a void in the community, many people, thousands of people losing their jobs, and of course then unable to patronize all the businesses that they had gone to previously. You know, all the people who worked at the General Motors assembly plant went to restaurants and bookstores and gas stations and grocery stores in that community, and they moved when the jobs moved. So the hope is that this new facility is going to bring back some of those jobs, and already thousands of jobs have been created with the construction of Assembly Atlanta. An estimated 4,000 more jobs at least are expected to come from all of the film productions and television series productions that could take place here at Assembly Atlanta. And I should mention that it is owned by Gray Television, which is the parent company of Atlanta News First. But you know, we're proud to show what Assembly Atlanta is expected to bring to the community. And in that light, a lot of celebration as signs for Assembly Atlanta have now gone up.
Sometimes I'll sit out here at night as everybody's locking up and people are going home. And this last week, a couple of times, I absolutely found myself getting a little emotional.
For Assembly developer Jay Gibson, it's something special to watch finally come to light.
Here you've been just pouring everything into it, and then you look up at these letters and you just sit back and go, wow.
After more than 2.5 years of planning, envisioning, and building, Assembly Atlanta is finally unveiling its new and iconic sign, lighting up the old General Motors plant bridge that was originally created in 1945. What once was a place where GM auto workers walked to access the car assembly plant.
So the unique thing about the bridge is it is a part of history. It's a part of the plant itself. It was iconic in the day, and so we're going to keep that, and we're going to make it even more iconic.
Is now a symbol of what will be assembled next at Assembly Studios.
Action!
It offers an opportunity for everybody, from the creative storytellers to the folks that make a living with their creative hands.
Gray Television CEO Hilton Howell is excited to welcome hundreds of film and television makers to the set.
And I do hope that 100 years from now, Georgia's a permanent place where films and television shows are made.
And now, the lights are finally on, and the show is just beginning.
This was a monument to Georgia to show the world what Georgia could do, and that was our goal from day one.
I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
And of course, with the hope that thousands of new jobs will be created with Assembly Atlanta, how do you manage people getting in and out? Because Assembly Atlanta is supposed to be a place where people can not just work, but where they can live and even just come in and maybe have dinner and enjoy their time there. So there's been a lot of thought put into the transportation surrounding Assembly Atlanta in Doraville and the infrastructure and the transit. My colleague Rachel Aragon has more on that.
Transportation is key for those who live and work in Doraville. Between the train stop,
like MARA is like my day-to-day way of commuting to work,
and the bus stops, there's no shortage of ways to get around, but there's room for improvement, especially as new development and state-of-the-art studios draw more people to the city center.
We're a more urban center now, and so it's more important for us to be able to enable all modes of transportation, including
Doraville's
bikes.
mayor says that's why they're focused on pedestrian walkways. He says the plan is to use federal funds to make it safer to cross several intersections along Buford Highway.
More than 10% of Doraville's households don't have cars, so this is really needed to help them get from the MARTA station to the bus stop.
And those who frequently come to this Doraville MARTA stop might notice some pedestrian-friendly changes down the road thanks to the new Peachtree Road streetscape project.
really focusing again on better bike access, better pedestrian access, trying to make it a street that everybody can use, not just cars.
They do very well as far as serving us.
Residents who rely on the bus to get around might also notice some changes in the future. Gwinnett County Commissioners recently approved a transit expansion plan to move forward that would add a bus rapid transit line from Doraville to Lawrenceville.
Every inch of Gwinnett County is covered in our new plan.
But it's not a done deal. The Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority will review the proposal. It's one of many additions Doraville residents would be excited to see.
I can't wait for the foundation to actually get done and be finished so I can actually see how it looks, and I can actually visit it myself and try out a couple restaurants and see what's going on with it.
In Doraville, Rachel Aragon, Atlanta News First.
Our thanks to Rachel for that report. Okay, so, when we're talking about film and television production, there's so much that goes into it, from the costumes that we talked about yesterday and, the script writing, casting, choosing the set, but also that includes the props. Brooks Baptiste has a closer look at that.
Then close your eyes and tap your heels together 3 times.
An iconic movie prop is one of the first things that comes to mind whenever referencing a particular film. LCW Props has been around for some 25 years, becoming a go-to shop for filmmakers.
We got started doing recycling of all things. We would just acquire props and things that turned into props. Soon enough, movie studios started coming by asking to rent that stuff, and we became a prop house.
Vice President for the company, Luke Zoller, says before expanding to the Hollywood of the South in 2016, LCW was based in California.
We had been shipping props back and forth for years. It just became a situation where we felt we could have a brick and mortar place here and just kind of centralize everything for the East Coast here in Atlanta. Yeah, these are reel-to-reel racks that we built for Stranger Things. They had a big insert shop.
Here in Atlanta, Zoller says you'll find most prop houses are known for housing furniture, weapons, rocks, and some larger movable items not directly built into the set. LCD noticed the need for less familiar objects.
We have a lot of working robotic type stuff, big stuff that, lights and blinks and moves, and server racks, laboratories, the high-tech lab.
Like this Marvel lab. Depending the size of the project, these props take anywhere from a few days to a month to build. For Georgia-made films like Marvel's Avengers Endgame and shows like Stranger Things and Ozark, the production designer and set decorator stops by this 60,000 square foot warehouse to make a vision come to life.
We kind of build the set from props here, work with their own construction departments, and that's how the sets get created. I mean, the requests are everything in between. We get asked to build something that, definitely doesn't exist. We get asked large martini glasses where models can sit in or something like that, to just about anything you could imagine, anything that's been on TV.
With infrastructure growing to support the Peach State's thriving film industry, Zoller says LCW is here to stay.
The atmosphere in Georgia and the just environment of Georgia, you have coastal, you have mountains, you have forests and inner cities, and you could shoot just about any backdrop in the state of Georgia. I think you're starting to see where film is going in the future.
Brooks Baptiste for that story. Technology is playing an increasingly more important role in television and movie production as well. Artificial intelligence, visual effects. Josh Skinner has more on that.
For Jason Marasini, the film industry looks different from when he started 2 decades ago.
I'm old enough to have a celluloid film degree.
Like, a lot different.
This is what I used, and you can see right there, this is where the splicing tape used to sit.
Nowadays, Marasini co-owns ECG Productions in Atlanta, a company that works on everything from branding content to documentaries with an emphasis on visual effects.
My favorite visual effects to do are honestly the ones that the viewer doesn't even notice.
Seth Johnson oversees animation for ECG.
This is the only real part of the shot that you're seeing is her in here. We shot her in front of a blue screen.
The hardest part of this work isn't the effects or animation, but keeping up with the rapidly advancing technology.
Oh, it's changing every day, especially since AI has become a major part of the equation.
Artificial intelligence. It's the hot word in film and, well, pretty much everywhere these days. And if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind.
At the beginning of the year versus now, it's already way different and way more advanced.
As a post-production manager, Annalie Brown sees it in her work every day, and it looks less like Skynet and more like a personal assistant.
AI kind of can, be taught to look for certain things and kind of help to facilitate your job in certain ways.
Almost like a rough draft. What it can't do is replicate what Brown and Johnson call the human element of visual storytelling.
Some of it is just not there, but it is going to change things majorly.
That major change is likely years away, but its arrival is certain. It's just a matter of how.
Where AI fits in our workflow now is TBD.
I just want to make sure that we're not leaning too much on it, I think.
Meaning that ECG's evolving to the task is still evolving.
There's not a time when you're not going to have a human involved in the process.
In Cobb County, Joshua Skinner, Atlanta News First.
Thank you so much to Joshua for that report. The celebration of the unveiling of Assembly Atlanta, it's going to involve a huge red carpet gala with some 2,500 guests and celebrities. It's going to be really a star-studded event. My colleague Don Shipman has more on that.
The lights are being hung, the sound is being checked, and the food is being delivered, all in anticipation of Assembly Atlanta's grand opening gala.
The red carpet's going to be rolled down the main street. So you get out of the car, there's a red carpet.
As Ella prepares for hosting duties of this Saturday's main event, which will be streamed live on ANF Plus and Gray TV's Local News Live, construction crews are busy installing the finishing touches to the Sky Lounge, which oversees the stage where some of Atlanta's finest will perform.
Killer Mike's going to be there. CeeLo Green is performing, Sheryl Crow, Gladys Knight. So kind of music for everyone.
This invite-only event will host more than 2,500 guests. An Assembly soundstage and back lot will serve as the event space.
Bar captain, serving captain.
Catering an event this size is a huge undertaking. Sterling Culinary Management is deploying nearly 300 staffers, bartenders, barbacks, servers, offering up Georgia-centric cuisine with an Atlanta flair.
So we have a lot of great Georgia restaurants involved, a lot of great food trucks in Atlanta. So we have charcuterie, we have raw bars, so we have tons of different things and a lot of great handmade cocktails, and of course local Georgia beers as well.
Patrick Quinn briefly touched upon this. Then Governor Jimmy Carter at the time, heavily involved in the beginning of film here in Georgia and really what we recognize as today, the Hollywood of the South. With your own involvement in looking back at this moment in history, take me back to before Carter era and the beginning years of film in Georgia, the spots that we started to see.
Well, Jimmy Carter has never been given enough credit for actually starting the Film Commission, and there's always been some disagreement as to whether Georgia was first or maybe New Mexico was first. But certainly Georgia was one of the very first film commissions in the United States. It all happened through the movie Deliverance that was done in 1973. And Jimmy Carter went up to where the movie was being shot and looked around like a lot of people, didn't realize the amount of jobs that came with that kind of production, and realized these were high-paying jobs, no environmental impact. It touched so many other industries, restaurants, car rentals, on and on and on. And he realized that this was a big opportunity for Georgia. And remember, Georgia was a lot different in 1973 than it is today. And he felt like this could be a real boom for the state in a lot of different ways, not just with economic impact, but also the amount of attention it would bring to Georgia. And he felt that it would also bring other jobs and industries that would come to the state. And so the Georgia Film Commission was formed, and I believe Ed Spivey was at that time the first executive director of the Film Commission, and it took off. And then other states obviously began to realize what impact the movie industry could have in their own states, and so film commissions started popping up all over the country, and it became very competitive. And truthfully, after Carter left office as governor, the other governors really, frankly, didn't pay that much attention to it. And I'm sure, I don't know my history. My history was in 1999, Governor Barnes appointed me to take over and become the film commissioner for the state and form a board and try to really resurrect the industry, because we had fallen from grace. I mean, we had been probably number 3 or 4 at one point, and we were probably 10 or 12 at the time that I took over and put together this incredible board to rebuild this industry.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, we're talking now 50 years later since the opening of the commission and your involvement in that part of history. This was such a new concept and a vision, and Deliverance set so much confidence in bringing that to life. What are some of the conversations that you were having as you were taking this leap of faith and moving us into this future of film that we recognize today?
Well, you know, Greg Torrey was the executive director when I took over, and was a terrific, just a fantastic guy. Lee Thomas, who followed him, worked as well. And I think one of the reasons we succeeded was honestly because I didn't know anything about the business. I mean, I just plunged ahead. You know, if I probably knew too much, I probably wouldn't have been able to get our board excited and get them energized to do what we needed to get done. You know, the roadblock was that we just had fallen from the kind of incentive other states were offering. We didn't have infrastructure like other states had. But we did have one thing, and I remember meeting with Greg, and we were talking about the kind of films that were now being done. It was mostly civil rights stuff. Occasionally we get some other movie. Robert Redford was filming a movie down in Savannah. But the bottom line was we had to really get out and study and figure out what it was going to take to really get the business back on track. And during my tenure as film commissioner, we got the first tax incentive plan passed in the state of Georgia. We wrote the second one, which has been improved upon since. I left the office, 40 years after I started, and then that second incentive plan actually came into effect the year after I left. And it's just been, I think when I got there, we had about 170 million in economic impact for the film industry, but most of that, frankly, was music. And when I left after that first tax incentive, we were over $1 billion. And today, it's $10-12 billion. It's amazing what's happened.
You actually are spot on. It is $12 billion, which from where we started in this short amount of time is just massive and significant to think about. What do you think is the significance of film for so many of us that connect to it on a deep and personal level, and how it plays out in economic impact and cultural and societal impact?
Well, the one thing I didn't mention, and the one thing that Georgia really had back in '99, and the reason that we continue to get at least some films, we had the phenomenal airport that we have today, then and now. And so it made it very easy for film crews to come in, producers, directors, to be able to come into Georgia and then also be able to go home. But the thing that people don't realize, when you make a movie or you may have a television series in anywhere around the state, it affects everything, and it's clean. It's a clean industry. It's the highest paying jobs that I know of any industry, even from an entry level standpoint. And so it affects restaurants, it affects car rentals, hotels. And so one of the things that we had to do as we were talking about rebuilding it, we had to go around the state and educate communities about why this industry was so important. And part of the reason we did that is we wanted pressure put on legislators, frankly, to pass that first incentive. We wanted them to know that if they went home, they were going to have some very angry constituents. So I traveled the state for months, flying all over the state, going to Rotary clubs, Chamber of Commerce's, and talking about the impact of the film industry and what benefits it could provide for communities, especially communities that were, losing industries and losing jobs. And this was a way for them to get a lot of that revenue back and get those jobs back.
You've had a lasting impact on film here in Georgia and really across the country through your time in public office as commissioner. Hearing the future that's taking hold today, the development of a project like Assembly Atlanta, taking over the former General Motors assembly plant in Doraville, creating jobs, creating this immersive space for livable housing and retail and so many opportunities for more film to come. What goes through your head?
Well, I remember sitting in an ideation meeting with our board, and I remember somebody saying this, and it wasn't me. And one of the things that I will say about this is that there were 40 dedicated people on this board that really wanted to see this industry come back. And one of the people in the room said, what Georgia's got to be able to be, we can no longer just be a receiver of this business. We've got to be a beacon. We've got to find a way to send out the message about how great Georgia is to do business. And that began the beginning of how we had sought to transform what Georgia was doing. What's happening with this new studio, honestly, was one of the big dreams that was laid out just in that ideation meeting. It would be a place that would have retail, it would have housing, it would have this phenomenal studio, editing, all of the things that have all come to pass. It is mind-boggling, frankly, for me, and it's so incredible to see that what we were able to do in those 4 years and how it's grown, the impact that it continues to have today. Frankly, I've been very fortunate in being involved in a number of businesses, but there's no doubt this is the thing I'm the most proud of in my own career.
And as we look to the future with Assembly Atlanta, what do you have to say to film projects out there, businesses that are looking to Georgia now, recognizing it as a major film landscape and a space for them, and wanting to make that move to invest here?
Well, look, I'll tell you what, it's the same message, I think, that we delivered in 1999 through 2003. This is an incredible place to do business. It's an incredible place to make movies. We have today incredible infrastructure and some of the most talented people in the industry. People who come to Georgia and have ever done any production here have always wanted to come back. I had a meeting early on with Robert Redford back when he was about to make The Legend of Bagger Vance down in Savannah. And one of the questions, because this is what I had to learn, I asked him, there's other places where you could make this movie. What is it about Georgia? And he simply said to me, I love coming to Georgia. He said, the people here are fantastic. They're hardworking, creative. And he said, we just have a great time whenever we come here to make any kind of a movie. And I think that has just held true all these years. And it's just been made even better by the kind of infrastructure that has been created. But the talent in this state, there's no state, and it's proven by what's happened here. There's no state that can provide this amount of talent and this kind of infrastructure and locations that can look like almost any place in the world. You can come to Georgia and film the Sahara Desert, the Grand Canyon, New York City. There's not many places where you can go and have all of that and not have to leave the state to make those kind of movies.
Carl Harry, as always, bringing
All right, and our thanks, of course, to my colleague Maria Moreau, who's going to join you in just about 10 minutes or so, and she's got a lot more content. But I know she's going to speak with our other colleague, Tim Darnell, about some of the history of Doraville, and an important piece of that history was actually a refinery fire that really devastated the community. We already talked a little bit about how the loss of the General Motors assembly plant in 2008 meant thousands of jobs were lost in the community, and it meant thousands of people moved out of that community. But another piece of, really sort of tragic piece of the history is the refinery fire. And Tim Darnell has a closer look at the impact that it had and how Doraville really struggled to recover.
51 years ago, on April 6th, 1972, there was a massive fire in the city of Doraville that we're revisiting here as part of Assembly Week on ATL Vault and AtlantaNewsFirst.com. The Triangle Refinery fire lasted for 3 days. Several unfortunate fatalities and casualties, and we are talking today with Valerie Biggerstaff. She is a blogger and a columnist for Appen Media, who owns the Dunwoody Crier, one of Metro Atlanta and in-town Atlanta's foremost long-standing journalistic icons. And Valerie, I came across, I'm going to do full disclosure, I actually remember my parents and grandparents taking me up Beaufort Highway in 1972. We were at a distance and we saw the huge black billowing clouds of smoke that just hovered over Beaufort Highway in Doraville. So I'm one of those people, I have a vivid memory of it. You covered the 50-year commemoration of the fire for Appen Media and several other publications. You came across just some fascinating details. Can you first of all just tell us how the whole thing started?
How the fire started?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my understanding from talking to several people and to the firefighters who were there is that one of the tanks, Triangle Refinery tanks, overflowed, and some of the gasoline went down through a trench that should not really have been open and flowed into the yard of a house on Doraville Circle, which was directly behind the refinery, and it came in contact with a pilot light in a house, and there was an explosion, and then that explosion caused fire to reach back to the tanks and caught the tanks, at least one of them to start with, on fire.
And then it just spread like from there.
Yes, well, I mean, it was a very large explosion and fireball and smoke. And although I did live not too far away in 1972, I don't remember much about it, and my family did not ride over and get a closer look. I was a student at Henderson High School and lived over on the other side of the school at that point, off Briarcliff Road, But another student that I spoke with from Henderson High School who was working at Winn-Dixie in Embry Hills, so he was along Chamblee Tucker Road at Embry Hills. He said he could see it from there. He could see the smoke and he was there the day that it happened. So there's a lot of people that have very vivid memories of the explosion and the fire and the smoke, and not just the visual part of it, but the smell of smoke. And some people even said they could feel heat, from certain distance, even though they were not right there, right next to the fire.
Where was the Triangle refinery located?
It was in Doraville and along Winters Chapel Road. And there's, it's still there.
I
And
understand
Triangle
it's owned by
Refinery.
Citgo Petroleum Corporation now, am I correct?
I'm not actually familiar with that. I'm not familiar with that. I have driven by there in, last year and recent times. And some people I spoke with said that they ride by there with their children sometimes, going when they're headed a certain place, that direction, and they'll tell them the story of the fire. But the street behind the neighborhood was most affected, and that was Doraville Circle.
So the refinery was in a very close proximity to residential neighborhoods, is that correct?
Yes, it was. And there was I guess it would make sense a railroad would be right next to it, but there was railroad. And according to Lieutenant Boozer, who was one of the firefighters there, they had to run some of the hoses under the railroad tracks, so that for a while the railroad traffic had to be stopped until they got hoses under the tracks, and then they let it resume. And it did go on for 3 days, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that 2 people died. Now, I may not be correct on that, but I believe one Triangle Refinery employee died, and one person who lived on Doraville Circle died.
Was there ever any concerns or worries that this would spread into the nearby residential areas? Was anyone evacuated?
The people on Doraville Circle were evacuated, and people who lived along Tilly Mill Road were also evacuated for a time, which was very close by. The Tilly Mill Road on that side, not more on the Dunwoody side. But there were evacuations. Some people were evacuated to nearby schools for a day or 2.
The General Motors plant was one of the foremost employers in Doraville at that time.
Mm-hmm.
In your research, were there ever any concerns that the automotive plant would be impacted by the fire?
I don't believe so. From talking with the firefighters, and back to your question about neighborhoods, it seemed that they really were more concerned with the adjacent tanks catching fire. And they did. It started with 1, and then I believe 2 and 3 both caught fire, but their focus was to keep it from spreading to the other tanks. And so they just had, everyone in DeKalb County and other fire departments came in as well. And then they brought in some special, Lieutenant Boozer told me about special foam that they used to try to help put the fire out. It's the same kind of foam that was used for, and may still be, I don't really know, but it was used at oil fires, like at oil pipelines, and in Texas is where the foam was used before they brought it here to help fight that fire. But I don't believe there was a concern. I mean, they may have been concerned, but it stayed there and they were able to contain it within Triangle refineries, other than the damage to the adjacent neighborhood.
And let's talk about those adjacent neighborhoods and the damages. The fire is eventually contained after 3 days, but that wasn't the end of the story for all the people who were evacuated. When they returned home, what did they find?
Well, there was one home that was completely destroyed. And then one person that I spoke with who lived there, he was a child at the time, his family was evacuated and came back, and their roof was damaged. And he told of how there was a big wheels sitting in the backyard that was melted, but their home in general was okay, and they came back to their home. But then from there was more to it, because there was a fight, as far as all this damage and the cost that was going to be involved to make repairs, and the concern that insurance companies were not going to want to insure those homes anymore. So the homeowners, I know, kind of went to battle with the city and tried to make sure that they were restored financially.
In talking with some of the people who were impacted by the fire, and in your articles that I read, one of the most vivid memories was just the smell of the smoke and how it just lingered for unbelievable periods of time. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, there were a lot of people who remembered the smell of the smoke and the way it looked. And of course, some people said they could feel the heat. And some people who remember were students in schools that seemed kind of far away. But for example, Montgomery Elementary School in Brookhaven, students there remember being able to see the smoke from their school windows. But yes, the smoke is a very vivid memory for a lot of people. And those who remember the fire well, it still seems very fresh in their minds. They remember it. It's vivid. And I remember that it happened, but like I said, I didn't really get a view of it from where we lived, and was probably off in my own little world as a 15-year-old.
Why do you think that even today, 51 years later, people still remember it? Why? I mean, was it just such a vivid, catastrophic event? What is it that's made the fire part of not only Doraville and DeKalb County folklore, but also just Metro Atlanta?
I mean, it was a major fire, and a lot of other fire departments were brought in. Everyone from DeKalb County, other than a few firefighters who had to be on standby in case something else happened during that time, they were all at the site. And the descriptions of the firefighters of how they were all on these deluge guns with trying to put the fire out, and the heat for them was almost unbearable. So they had to take breaks. They would have to work for a period of time and then go. The Red Cross came, and they had a tent set up with food and a place for them to cool down and rest before they went back on the fire to fight the fire. But I think just because it was so large and it was the biggest fire, that a lot of people remember. And Lieutenant Boozer in particular, who was, retired from DeKalb County Fire Department, and some of the other firefighters I spoke to, and they just all remembered it as the biggest and most difficult fire that they ever had to deal with.
We are wrapping up our conversation with Valerie Biggerstaff. She is a columnist and blogger here in Metro Atlanta. Tell us about the past tense ga.com blog that you run.
Yes, well, I started my blog in 2020. I still write for the Dunwoody Crier history articles and a column called Past Tense, but my blog just gives me an opportunity to sometimes write on subjects that might not fit with the Dunwoody Crier. And I include a lot of the same topics between the two, but sometimes I'll write about some things that are a little bit more from my own personal experiences. For example, I recently wrote on my blog about being a 7th grade safety patrol member and going to Washington, D.C. So this is a very, just something that a lot of people who were in Georgia and were patrols, they went on this trip, and it was just a memory. So I like to do some of those stories sometimes.
We encourage all of our listeners and viewers to check out Past Tense ga.com. Thanks to Valerie Biggerstaff as we are wrapping up this edition of ATL Vault, talking about the very famous Doraville refinery fire of 51 years ago. April 6, 1972, part of our continuing coverage of Doraville and Assembly Week here at ATL Vault and AtlantaNewsFirst.com.
And we're joined now by a familiar voice and a familiar byline that you see on AtlantaNewsFirst.com, digital producer of Investigates, Tim Darnell. That conversation that you had about the 1972 Doraville deadly refinery fire, such an important moment in history, and something you touched upon at the very beginning is you got to witness yourself this moment.
I did, Maria, and I'm dating myself here, but there are a lot of folks who are residents of Doraville or residents of DeKalb County who have very vivid memories. My parents and grandparents took me to see the smoke from the fire. Now, this refinery fire happened 51 years ago, this past April, around the Doraville Circle area, which is off of Winters Chapel, New Peachtree Road, the I-285 interchange. Happened 51 years ago. The refinery was owned by a company called the Triangle Refinery Company. And early one morning on April 6, 1972, one of the storage tanks began leaking into a nearby dam or dike. Some of those fuels descended into one of the neighborhoods, and the vapors from the leaking fuel was so strong and so potent that a stove, pilot light, a gas stove, pilot light, a common appliance that we are so familiar and think nothing about using today, actually caught the fuel on fire, causing that home to explode. Several dozens of homes were damaged as a result. More than 300 people were forced to evacuate their home. And imagine coming home after a long day of work to find that your home has been evacuated, you're having to shelter in nearby hotels or elementary schools. Montgomery Elementary School, Nancy Creek Elementary School were used as staging areas for those people who have been evacuated. Firefighters were called in from all over the country, as far away as from New York, from Cobb County, DeKalb, City of Atlanta, other more faraway places. The flames and the heat and the smoke were so intense that really firefighters were only able to battle the flames for 15 to 20 minutes at a time. We had dozens of firefighters and emergency service personnel had to be treated for heat exhaustion and then returned to the front lines. It was just an amazing sight, and it's something that
we say tragically, it was a fatal fire. 2 people died in the flames. Truly a miracle that more people didn't, lose their lives and become casualties as a result of this. But after the fire, returning home, imagine returning to your home not knowing how much damage it has sustained, and you're faced with debris, smoke, fumes, overwhelming odors from a refinery oil fire that has seeped rather into your furniture, your clothes. I mean, it was just a tremendously traumatic experience in the history of Doraville.
And we talk about that moment in Doraville's history. Doraville itself is a small community, about 10,000 people, growing but still small. This had a community-wide impact, and as we're talking about Assembly Atlanta and its build being central to Doraville's future, why is this refinery so important to remember all these years later?
Because it's a reminder of just how easily accidents can happen at locales where hazardous materials are housed. Look at the I-85 bridge collapse a few years ago, started by a simple fire from someone who was homeless underneath the bridge, and yet it started near a site where hazardous materials were located. It brought down an entire bridge, an interstate bridge, causing a major metropolitan area's economy to just sort of come to a standstill. Now today, the refinery is still there. It's owned by Citgo Petroleum Company, and we understand that since that tragedy 51 years ago, that the area has seen massively improved and enhanced security measures, regular inspections, surveillance cameras, heightened security. So, there was a fire 8 months after this refinery fire that not many people remember. Wasn't nearly as catastrophic, no casualties, no evacuations. But, if folks around the Doraville Circle area in Doraville, Winters Chapel, I-285, New Peachtree Road, drive by the Citgo refinery multiple times every day, and we should always be reminded that there is no such thing as too many safety precautions when you're dealing with something catastrophic as what happened 51 years ago.
I don't mean to date you myself, but you have been a long-time journalist here in Atlanta, very honed in on the community here, and following these moments of history, not just in Doraville, but really across Georgia. You're even our go-to guy right now on the coverage of the Georgia indictments involving former President Donald Trump and so many others. You're capturing moments of history, documenting them, and seeing them for yourself play out. Talk to me a little bit about, the Doraville refinery and other moments that will forever be remembered, and seeing these communities and these situations develop from there.
Moments in history like the Doraville refinery fire of 1972. One thing that you have been wonderful about covering this past week is the 50th anniversary of the election of Maynard Jackson as Atlanta's first African American mayor, and also the first mayor of a major deep southern city in history. We're seeing these kind of moments. We're seeing moments in history where a former lawfully elected president of the United States is under indictment here in our own county, in Fulton County, for allegedly attempting to overturn the results of Georgia's 2020 election. Those are all moments in history. I believe it was Katharine Graham, who was the owner and publisher of the Washington Post, that recited the famous quote that news, as it happens, breaking news, is really the first draft of history, and we are living in just unprecedented times and seeing moments of history unfolding before us. But as Winston Churchill said, if you don't know your history, you're destined to repeat it. So I think that's why we should really all remember these incredibly momentous events in our city and our communities and our nation's history that we're living through right now.
Tim Darnell, digital producer for our Atlanta News First investigative department. You have a series called ATL Vault. We just saw one of your vaults as you delve into the 1972 deadly refinery fire in Doraville. But this is a series that you come out with every month, and it captures local history and moments in history that can often be forgotten. Tell us what you have in store and why this is a project that you're so passionate about.
Well, it's a project that we're passionate about because we know that a lot of folks who watch our newscasts and our digital streaming platforms are not from Atlanta and may not be aware of all of the amazing events that have happened in our community over the past couple of 100 years. Upcoming in December, we have a story about Atlanta's own Berlin Wall that was constructed in December of 1962 that had distinct and unpleasant racial overtones that we're covering. Number of other topics that we'll be delving into next year. Next September will be the 160th anniversary of the beginning of the burning of Atlanta during the Civil War of the 19th century. So these are all momentous occasions. Some of the topics that we have covered, as we talked about, Maynard Jackson's 50th anniversary as election of mayor. Earlier this year, one of our outstanding anchors, Rick Folbaum, did a story that we assisted on looking at the history of Sweet Auburn Avenue, the first Atlanta police officers who were hired in 1947, who were African American, and who began patrolling the streets of their community 75 years ago or so. So these are some of the topics that we're looking at, and it's just a way that we can bring Atlanta's vibrant history to life with new perspectives and new visions of that history.
Tim Darnell, so well said. Always great to have you on ANF Plus. You're very central to the digital news that we bring to our viewers every day. I appreciate you joining us. We are going to continue our Assembly Atlanta coverage with moments in history and a closer look at how we got here. Our Chelsea Bimeford takes you through the timeline of Doraville.
Over there, it's meant to look like the French Quarter. I believe that's New York brownstones.
Doraville Mayor Joseph Geierman showed us the sound stages that are nearing completion at Assembly Atlanta. Soon, they'll be used to start cranking out TV shows and movies, but long before Gray Television took over, the 135-acre property was home to a different type of assembly.
They produced GM cars through their whole existence, everything from the Woody to classics all the way up to modern day.
The General Motors plant opened in the heart of Doraville in the 1940s. It brought thousands of jobs and people to the small town.
The city really grew up around the GM plant. It was a really important part of the city for a long time.
But in 2008, GM closed the plant and the city was left wondering what would happen and what could replace so many jobs. 6 years later, a developer purchased the property for $50 million. They tore down the plant and began redeveloping the site, only to be halted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
About 2020 is when we first came and walked on the site for the first time.
That's when Gray's CEO Hilton Howell and developer Jay Gibson entered the picture, drawing up plans for a new, creative, and innovative production hub.
And by early 2021, specifically around April, we closed on the property, and then we filed our permits.
Gray broke ground in September of 2021, and just over 2 years later, construction of Phase 1 is almost complete.
Moving forward, you know, it's a state-of-the-art production facility. Everything from lighting, grip, wardrobe, props, 3D printing, transpo, everything.
Assembly Atlanta will employ roughly 4,000 people and help reinvigorate the heart of Doraville as it was so long ago.
And And here we are today with Assembly Atlanta, 135 acres of film production offices, warehouses, cityscapes recreated, and so much more retail, livable housing, businesses that will boom as a result of this project. And it's all because of a visionary, our CEO of Great Television, Hilton Howell. This all started as an idea for a better future for film, for opportunity here in Georgia, and to honor the Doraville community. Our own anchor, Tracy Hutchins, actually went to Assembly Atlanta to talk to the visionary himself and show you a little bit more of this massive undertaking.
I think we're off.
And we're off. But as we get closer, it is clear Assembly Studios is nearly complete. Great Television CEO Hilton Howell is like a kid in a candy store.
The balconies just give you a view of things that's amazing. And then this is New Orleans.
I love it. There are 19 sound stages across 8 studio buildings. On the outside, movie makers can use the facades to transport you to the French Quarter, New Orleans, Tribeca in New York, or across the pond to Europe.
As soon as they're ready to go, we are.
And inside, offices, wardrobe rooms. Oh my gosh, it's huge! A massive makeup room and dressing rooms too.
There's gonna be a TV in every room, trust me. So.
And how many dressing rooms are there?
You know, there are dressing rooms all the way along this front side.
Just steps away from the soundstage.
I do want you to walk carefully because these are going up, but there's nothing going up above us here. So let's go straight across.
Beyond the backlot, a crown jewel atop one of 2 reflective buildings.
This is translucent onyx, and it is backlit, and it runs almost really 3 floors because the top floor is over 18 feet tall. And so it runs from right here all the way to the top, way above this.
I was one of the first to walk on the southern circular staircase to what's become known as the Jewel Box.
These are lit bronze inlays, and it will cover the top and come down the sides. And then that's the view out over all of Assembly Atlanta.
An indoor-outdoor space for film and television wrap parties.
I'm excited because we're honoring the past, but we're creating a new and exciting future. And it's going to create even more jobs than General Motors did. I'm very excited about that. The livelihoods and what this is going to be able to do. You know, I think I've been quoted, we're going to have $1 billion coming out of here. I hope more than that, but we'll see. I think it's going to be great for everybody.
And we are joined with none other than our Atlanta News First anchor reporter, Tracy Hutchins, live from Assembly. We just took a look at your tour with Hilton Howell, exciting moments around Assembly Atlanta. You've actually been out there all week long yourself.
We have, Maria, and to be honest with you, this is my second chance to come to Assembly Atlanta. We were here a year in August, and that's when we kind of really started to get to see things come from the ground up. So to be here, about 14 months later, it is pretty incredible how far they've come. Hopefully you can see behind us here actually what's going on behind us. Because right now we can tell you the reflective pool you can see between these 2 buildings here is actually a very cool thing. Everything here serves a dual purpose because you have the buildings here and of course the backlot area and those frontage areas. You got a chance to see that in that story. They serve as multiple cities, and the reflective pool actually can serve, it's not just a retention pond, but they can shoot in this as well, and also between these 2 buildings they can be used as more or less maybe futuristic type of buildings. They're very reflective, so they look very modern and futuristic. Having a little bit of audio issues. We're going to get you back in just a second, Maria. But just wanted to tell you about how exciting it was to really get a chance to walk around with the visionary for Assembly Atlanta, Assembly Studios, because he really was like a kid in a candy store showing off everything. What was supposed to only be about an hour ended up being about 2.5, almost 3 hours, because there were so many new things. He said, you want to see this? You want to go out in the balcony? You want to go up top? Absolutely, I want to see it all. he's just absolutely so excited about what's going on out here at Assembly Atlanta and Assembly Studios as well. And what was interesting, because again, he did have this vision. I asked him 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what would you like people to say about Assembly Atlanta? And he said, you know, I want people to say that it made a difference, that it helped make this business amongst all the other studios that are already here a permanent part of our economy. And I think I may have lost you again, Maria. I apologize for that. But the great thing is, because he says he loves Atlanta, he loves Georgia, really the idea here is really to make sure the resources that we have in our state, that we can use them, that we don't have to pull people from other parts of the country. Like, say, the huge industry that we have in Los Angeles for filmmaking. We don't have to bring filmmakers and production crews from out in the West Coast. We have those folks here, and we can use them here, and that's really what Assembly Studios and Assembly Atlanta is all about. So that's really the goal in all of this, is that, you know, this 10 to 20 years from now, this will be a part of one of the massive industries that we have in Metro Atlanta. He said, just like the 1996 Olympics did for Atlanta, he wants Assembly Atlanta to do the same right now for the film industry. And Maria, I think I can hear you now. So yeah, it was an exciting time to be out here last week and certainly all this week long as well.
Well, we heard you great, Tracy. Thanks for working through some of those technical issues. You know, I hear time and time again through the stories you all tell and your conversation with Hilton himself, he's all about giving back to the community, and that is seen clear as day with the vision of Assembly Atlanta. You were actually on site last year when construction was happening, when this was still being built up, and we didn't quite get to see it as it stands today. How's the feeling from a year that you had a year ago of this bright future to now knowing that in just a few days there will be a massive unveiling, and with that a month of job creation, opportunity, and really a positive space for many of Doraville community members, many Atlanta businesses to come and be at Assembly?
You know, I think it's almost similar to when you build a house, when you watch that house being built from the ground up. Granted, we haven't taken part in all of that, but when we were here in August of 2022, a lot of gravel, a lot of beams, a lot of open spaces. And when we took the tour then with Hilton in kind of a cart, he said, this is what this is going to look like. This is what this will be. And this retention pond here actually was just kind of a big hole in the ground. There was nothing really around it. So it was a little bit hard at the time to kind of visualize everything. Now that we are here, I'm like, oh, that's what we were talking about back then, and that's where we were back then. So I had to get my bearings a little bit. It took me about 30 minutes or so to kind of remember where we were and how far we've come since then. So really, it's so exciting to see all this really come together, and this huge unveiling party that's happening this weekend. And even within the last week of us being here, just since Monday, actually just since Friday when I shot that story with Hilton Howell, how much has been done since then. The retention pond has been filled, sidewalks have gone in, the planting has gone in, of course a massive stage gone up. And in the studio, actually in the backstage studio area, that's where a lot of the activity will happen over the weekend. We had a chance to kind of drive through there. That's where some of those frontage buildings are, and it's just a massive studio. So just imagine, like, really the size of a football field, I think, and you can put anything in it. A live audience. They have kind of a reception area where you say if they do have a live audience there, where you can get tagged and get your name badge and greeted and everything, and then they open 2 sets of double doors and you walk in, and it is just massive. So you'd walk onto this huge sound stage. That's where a lot of activity is going to take place right now in Building 3. That's what's going to happen over the weekend, but it is also amazing to see it come together. And again, just like building a new house, it's kind of when the walls go up, when the paint goes on, when they put the plants outside, you're like, this is it. All those things that were on paper, the plans, you get to walk into them, be in it, and it is really amazing.
And what a fantastic way to showcase all of this by having our own newscast and the stories of Atlanta brought to our viewers live from Assembly Atlanta. We'll catch up with you on our afternoon and evening news. But I wanted to take you all over to our Don Shipman, who is following all of the excitement ahead of the unveiling.
Being hung, the sound is being checked, and the food is being delivered, all in anticipation of Assembly Atlanta's grand opening gala.
The red carpet's going to be rolled down the main street. So
Thank
you get
you,
out
Maria.
of the car, there's
We're
a
clear?
red carpet.
As Ella prepares for
All right,
hosting
thank you.
duties of this Saturday's main event, which will be streamed live on ANF Plus and Gray TV's Local News Live, construction crews are busy installing the finishing touches to the Sky Lounge, which oversees the stage where some of Atlanta's finest will perform.
Killer Mike's going to be there. CeeLo Green is performing. Sheryl Crow, Gladys Knight. So kind of music for everyone.
This invite-only event will host more than 2,500 guests. An Assembly soundstage and back lot will serve as the event space.
Bar captain, serving captain.
Catering an event this size is a huge undertaking. Sterling Culinary Management is deploying nearly 300 staffers, bartenders, barbacks, servers, offering up Georgia-centric cuisine with an Atlanta flair.
So we have a lot of great Georgia restaurants involved, a lot of great food trucks in Atlanta. So we have charcuterie, we have raw bars, so we have tons of different things and a lot of great handmade cocktails, and of course local Georgia beers as well.
And that was our Don Shipman bringing you an inside look at all of the excitement building up, a big unveiling and a gala that we hope to bring you here on Atlanta News First and Atlanta News First Plus. This weekend is the big day, Saturday. Make sure that you mark your calendar because we are taking you inside of Assembly Atlanta and officially unveiling what is going to be a central part of Georgia's future. And if you have been following with us throughout this week as we take you through the different parts of Assembly Atlanta, make sure that you visit our AtlantaNewsFirst.com website. That is where we are putting out the latest stories of both Doraville community, of the projects and builds that are coming out of Assembly Atlanta, and just this immersive space that we're taking you through. This is really an effort to take you through all sides of Assembly Atlanta, all parts of Georgia's film history and its future. And as you can see, all of our reporters talking to the movie experts, talking to the movie fans, and really getting everyone's take as we continue to cover Assembly Atlanta and bring you the latest out of that. You know, some cool jobs are going to be created out of this. A lot of the movies that you love are going to possibly and very likely be filmed at Assembly Atlanta. We know there are many Marvel favorites that have come out of Georgia, a lot of iconic films like Deliverance, and so many more still yet to come. But it is a massive effort from hundreds and thousands of film industry workers, and many that you don't often get to see on screen. Josh Skinner takes you behind some of the people that make the magic happen.
For Jason Marasini, the film industry looks different from when he started 2 decades ago.
I'm old enough to have a celluloid film degree.
Like, a lot different.
This is what I used, and you can see right there, this is where the splicing tape used to sit.
Nowadays, Marasini co-owns ECG Productions in Atlanta, a company that works on everything from branding content to documentaries with an emphasis on visual effects.
My favorite visual effects to do are honestly the ones that the viewer doesn't even notice.
Seth Johnson oversees animation for ECG.
This is the only real part of the shot that you're seeing is her in here. We shot her in front of a blue screen.
The hardest part of this work isn't the effects or animation, but keeping up with the rapidly advancing technology.
Oh, it's changing every day, especially since AI has become a major part of the equation.
Artificial intelligence. It's the hot word in film and, well, pretty much everywhere these days. And if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind.
At the beginning of the year versus now, it's already way different and way more advanced.
As a post-production manager, Annalie Brown sees it in her work every day, and it looks less like Skynet and more like a personal assistant.
AI kind of can, be taught to look for certain things and kind of help to facilitate your job in certain ways.
Almost like a rough draft. What it can't do is replicate what Brown and Johnson call the human element of visual storytelling.
Some of it is just not there. but it is going to change things majorly.
That major change is likely years away, but its arrival is certain. It's just a matter of how.
Where AI fits in our workflow now is TBD.
I just want to make sure that we're not leaning too much on it, I think.
Meaning that ECG's evolving to the task is still evolving.
There's not a time when you're not going to have a human involved in the process.
In Cobb County, Joshua Skinner, Atlanta News First.
I love that story myself. Josh Skinner always bringing to life these important people that really bring you into worlds and let you escape a little from reality, bringing books to film and so much more. And as we continue to follow all of the parts that make Assembly Atlanta such an impressive and immersive space, we have to talk a little bit about the people that bring your characters to life. Lana Harris stepped inside of one of our green rooms.
Another day, another experience. It's like a new adventure every time I wake up and go to work. Natalie Hayes got into the makeup profession the same way a lot of people get into their jobs.
Completely by accident.
But she realized she had a knack for detail, creativity, and clearly organization. This is the spread she takes with her to every job to account for every skin type and skin color on the spectrum.
I've got several different palettes.
Complete with what she calls the unforgiving light.
I will be able to see anything and everything.
And she needs it to do everything from beauty makeup to adding bruises and aging actors by years.
Just accentuating the lines that are already in the face, or, I've taken someone's hair and lightened it.
Turns out that's not as easy as it looks, especially as they start over every day of filming.
Then sometimes they've got situations where there's a wound plus aging plus this plus that, so they're also having to keep track of continuity because you always shoot out of sequence.
In her 13-year career, Hayes has worked with big names like Jeff Foxworthy, T-Pain, Ric Flair, even the cast of The Walking Dead. She says there's never a dull moment with this job.
I would love to go to lunch because a zombie would sit, right across from me, looking completely dead, but have a knife or something through their skull, and they'd be eating a salad and talking on the cell phone to his girlfriend.
But one client in particular still amazes her to this day.
I did makeup for President Carter. And it was just the realization of this man has been president of the country, and I'm just in here, me and him kicking it.
She says the feeling of working on someone she grew up admiring is like none other.
It's like a cool full circle kind of thing that I never would have imagined.
Lana Harris, Atlanta News First.
Again, as we continue to highlight the important people that bring film, movies to life, make the characters who they are, we actually had a unique opportunity to take you inside one of Assembly Atlanta's massive and detail-heavy sound stages. And these sound stages are just a next level, and they are going to be central to some of the films that you'll continue to see out of Atlanta. Our Tori Cooper takes you inside.
I'm Tori Cooper, and right now, I'm 51 feet up in the air. Thankfully, I'm not afraid of heights, because out here at Assembly Studios, production crews are going to have all of the amenities that we get to show you. So tonight, we're talking all about the fact that crews, when they come here to shoot a movie or just create anything, they will be able to do it on a soundstage like this. A soundstage? What is that?
So a purpose-built soundstage, really is designed for the folks that come here and create content to make a workflow that's repeatable and reliable and gives us elements of control, one of which is in the name, sound. So you can tell we were on an active construction site moments ago. We come in here and it's dead.
This catwalk allows crews to control light and power to the set in a safe environment.
We've got tilt panel concrete walls, so 14-inch thick concrete, and then we have series of layers of insulation that go interior and on the roof, and it really deadens the sound, so there's no echo, there's no nothing in here.
From up there to down here, you are in full control. You gotta let everyone know it's quiet on the set, you're gonna use your bell and light system. There are 19 different sound stages at Assembly Studios. Each one is different in size, but this one is equipped with 8 different hair and makeup rooms, and there's even office space. And outside, you can be somewhere completely different. We're in the French Quarter, y'all. Take a look. This is just one of the many different facades that they have here at Assembly Studios. Down the way, there's also a facade recreating Tribeca, New York, a brownstone in New York, and even a trip to Europe. And this is only one small part of the bigger picture out here at Assembly Studios. I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
So you have the sound stages, the hair, the makeup, the costumes, the visual effects, but you might have not realized the importance of props. Our Brooks Baptiste takes a closer look at the inanimate objects that really make the films that you love.
Then close your eyes and tap your heels together 3 times.
An iconic movie prop is one of the first things that comes to mind whenever referencing a particular film.
Quiet on the set.
LCW Props has been around for some 25 years, becoming a go-to shop for filmmakers.
We got started doing recycling of all things. We would just acquire props and things that turned into props. Soon enough, movie studios started coming by asking to rent that stuff, and we became a prop house.
Vice President for the company, Luke Zoller, says before expanding to the Hollywood of the South in 2016, LCW was based in California.
We had been shipping props back and forth for years. It just became a situation where we felt we could have a brick and mortar place here and just kind of centralize everything for the East Coast here in Atlanta. Yeah, these are reel-to-reel racks that we built for Stranger Things. They had a big insert shop.
Here in Atlanta, Zoller says you'll find most prop houses are known for housing furniture, weapons, rocks, and some larger movable items not directly built into the set. LCD noticed a need for less familiar objects.
We have a lot of working robotic type stuff, big stuff that, lights and blinks and moves, and server racks, laboratories, the high-tech lab.
Like this Marvel lab. Depending the size of the project, these props take anywhere from a few days to a month to build. For Georgia-made films like Marvel's Avengers Endgame and shows like Stranger Things and Ozark, the production designer and set decorator stops by this 60,000 square foot warehouse to make a vision come to life.
We kind of build the set from props here, work with their own construction departments, and that's how the sets get created. I mean, the requests are everything in between. We get asked to build something that, definitely doesn't exist. We get asked large martini glasses where models can sit in or something like that, to just about anything you could imagine, anything that's been on TV.
With infrastructure growing to support the Peach State's thriving film industry, Zoller says LCW is here to stay.
The atmosphere in Georgia and the just environment of Georgia, you have coastal, you have mountains, you have forests and inner cities, and you could shoot just about any backdrop in the state of Georgia. I think you're starting to see where film is going in the future.
That is exactly right. The future of film is really central to Assembly Atlanta and the theme, past, present, future. Right now, looking to the future and opportunity, both technologically and job-wise, to employ the next generation of industry workers. We actually had a chance, if you were with us on Atlanta News First this morning during our newscast, to talk to someone who was very central to bringing the Assembly Atlanta vision to fruition. Our Atlanta News First morning team spoke with Jay Gibson. He is an Assembly Atlanta developer, and he talks more about bringing this idea into reality.
We've got Jay Gibson joining us. He is the Assembly Studios developer. It is great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So take us back, not even too long ago, but when all of this was just dirt out here. What was that like, and what was going through the mind?
It was really a vision, and it was a big vision at that. And so we were able to come together with an amazing team, and over really 18 short months do this whole thing, and it was a team effort.
That's what's so remarkable to me is we were out here a year ago. Remember, we were in that big tent,
Yeah.
and there was so much construction. It was dirt, it was really just a framing for a lot of these buildings. You guys have worked 24/7 overtime.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to have these guys working behind us with their hard hats and their painting. What do you think when you see all that going on?
Pride.
Yeah.
Really, it's just you look throughout this whole project, all the teams that were involved and the way that they bought into what we were trying to do, and it would not have happened without it. And we focused strongly on Georgia. Hilton's vision from day one. We said we're going to show the world what Georgia can do, and so it's a very heavily Georgia done project, and it's just pride.
And it looks like it when you drive onto this campus. We always say that it feels like something new is being done every day, and we've only been out here for just this week. I can imagine what goes through your head when you're talking about more than a year, seeing it start from nothing and now become this. When you come out here, and when you see people who are coming out here, what do you want them to see, since you're the developer?
Wow. I just want them to see just this amazing thing, and I want them to see really a project that is, I think, the beginning of a new phase here in Georgia. I want them to be proud of it. I want them to be proud of what's happening here in Georgia, and I want them to look at the opportunity for all Georgians. I mean, this industry is an industry open to anybody that has desire and talent that wants to do it, and hopefully this is a home where it all comes to fruition.
I love that. See that assembly sign?
Oh, gosh. I got emotional over that.
Did you really?
I really did.
Really?
It was
How come?
Well, here we've just, our blood and sweat and tears for 2 years, and you see this sign light up, and it's just kind of like, you're almost there. And I stepped back. I think that was the first time it was dark, it was quiet. Hilton and I were standing there, and it just hit me, and I kind of got emotional about it.
What always amazes me when you see things like that is knowing that there were steps to get here.
Right.
Just take us behind the scenes, just a little bit of what that process even looks like, because I think if you're just getting renovations done at home, how crazy that can get. So when you're talking about a big project like this, I know that's a lot to take on.
It was, and it started with a vision. As a matter of fact, our land planners, H. Gore, we started day one, and they did initial land plan. It was called The Idea of the Idea, and we actually have it framed in Hilton's office. And that idea morphed, and we brought in the architects, and we brought in the engineers, and we brought in the GCs, and the whole thing just took a life of its own. And it was really managing that process. And we had 88 acres under concrete.
Right.
Wow. We ended up crushing it all on site, no haul off. We used it for the GAB, the base, and the roads and everything.
Right.
And so it was just managing a process that kind of grew. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and we just had to keep our hands around it.
So this is phase one?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So phase one is, when do you think that's going to be wrapped up?
After the gala, I think we have about 45 more days to really,
Really?
to
Well,
get to the end.
As fast as y'all are moving, you're going to get it done. And then starts phase two.
Then phase two.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's going to be amazing. It already is.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know you're proud, and we appreciate you being here.
Well, we appreciate y'all being
And we
here.
appreciate the donuts you brought this morning.
Jay,
Oh, I could use a donut, definitely. A good way to start out the morning. That was our Brooks Baptiste, Gravir Dinza, talking to someone who's been central to all of this, Jay Gibson, Assembly Atlanta developer, really bringing vision to fruition with Assembly Atlanta and what we know of it as today. As we talk about the big unveiling Saturdays, the day we have the gala, the celebration, as Jay just talked about, this is months in the making and will continue through phased reopening. We have phase one, the official unveiling of Assembly Atlanta, and phase two is an exciting moment because that is when members of the public will have a chance to utilize this space. I mean, this is not just going to be a film studio production set. This is going to be a place for parks, to walk through Doraville, to take in some parts of this space and really give back to the community. Our Don Shipman takes you through phase one of the unveiling, and followed by the parts that you'll get to see yourself.
The lights are being hung, the sound is being checked, and the food is being delivered. all in anticipation of Assembly Atlanta's grand opening gala.
The red carpet's going to be rolled down the main street. So you get out of the car, there's a red carpet.
As Ella prepares for hosting duties of this Saturday's main event, which will be streamed live on ANF Plus and Gray TV's Local News Live, construction crews are busy installing the finishing touches to the Sky Lounge, which oversees the stage where some of Atlanta's finest will perform.
Killer Mike's going to be there. CeeLo Green is performing. Sheryl Crow, Gladys Knight. So kind of music for everyone.
This invite-only event will host more than 2,500 guests. An Assembly soundstage and back lot will serve as the event space.
Bar captain, serving captain.
Catering an event this size is a huge undertaking. Sterling Culinary Management is deploying nearly 300 staffers, bartenders, barbacks, servers, offering up Georgia-centric cuisine with an Atlanta flair.
So we have a lot of great Georgia restaurants involved, a lot of great food trucks in Atlanta. So we have charcuterie, we have raw bars, so we have tons of different things and a lot of great handmade cocktails, and of course local Georgia beers as well.
Basically creating a place that's a small town.
Construction crews and heavy equipment take up this space now, but in the coming months, that wide open plot of land right across the street from Brooklyn, New Orleans, and Paris will be a place for people to assemble.
The public park on the outside will have a pavilion. The pavilions can be designed for movie nights or concerts.
Assembly Atlanta is designed to look and feel like a city center. Along with the public parks, Gray Television's multi-million-dollar Doraville development project, which includes 250,000 square feet of stage space for TV and film production, will also include a boutique hotel, townhouses and apartments, and entertainment venues.
We're doing a series of small restaurant buildings. Those buildings are exclusively for those restaurants that are sitting in this amazing food world of Beaufort Highway.
Saw great potential in the area.
In nearby Chamblee, executive chef Bethany Colden of Southbound, a restaurant serving up farm-fresh Southern food, sees the potential for more growth, especially with Assembly linking its own on-campus trail system into Chamblee's existing 2-mile rail trail. Connectivity similar to Atlanta's Beltline.
Just watch that area grow, all the restaurants and condos and apartments popping up, walkability, people out.
So there you have it, phase 1, exciting, coming soon, followed by a couple months later, phase 2, and really a chance for the community to take in all that is Assembly Atlanta. And it is all a part of building up Georgia's future, bringing film industry work here to Atlanta and continuing to showcase all of your favorite movies, the classics that will go down in history from right here in the Peach State. Our Rachel Polanski takes you through the impact of a project like Assembly Atlanta in building up Georgia's tomorrow.
I've been standing with you. I've been right here with you, Troy.
Whether they want to be in front of the camera,
it has to be slid in.
Behind the camera,
you have to press this button.
The goal then becomes to try and find a piece that still stands alone.
or writing the dialogue you see on screen. Students at Georgia State School of Film, Media, and Theater,
and just that moment that they're exposed,
are learning it all.
We can catch that little look.
Cinematography, from screenwriting, production, post-production, animation, sound, just everything you're interested in, there's a class for that.
And now a reveal.
It's one of the reasons why international student Cecilia Muniz came to GSU. The other reason, location.
I did look at California and New York, but then I learned about Atlanta, how it's like the Hollywood of the South. I started looking at schools in Georgia, and I saw that GSU was the best fit for me.
But it was not always this way. In fact, it was not until 2017 that the university created the School of Film, Media, and Theater.
Action.
And just last year, GSU began offering a Master of Fine Arts.
We've always done a really good job of getting people in below-the-line jobs, so crew work, craftsmen, editors, all of the sort of behind-the-scenes work. We wanted more people that were above the line in the titles of the credits.
Yes,
I love hearing that.
Dr. Ethan Tussey says above-the-line positions typically include directors, writers, actors, and those who influence the creative process.
Historically, the tax incentive has brought a lot of production here, but the coming up with the story and the talent that crafts the on-screen presence, that's usually happened in New York and LA. And so we're trying to build capacity here in Georgia.
And he wants his alumni to be able to get any job in the film industry.
Yeah, I like the way it feels.
And those efforts appear to be working. After graduating in 2021, alumni Timothy Richardson has worked as an actor, writer, and director of photography.
I shot my first feature. After that, a myriad of short films. Now I've branched over into the commercial field and I'm shooting, around Atlanta, Georgia.
And he praises GSU for giving him the tools to succeed.
I credit a lot of my, early success to just being able to have professors that taught me the doctrine, they taught me the philosophy of what the moving image is. So that kind of, set me on the right path.
This is a good monologue.
Paving the way for future graduates.
And making sure that you can do that successfully.
Because here at GSU, professors don't want students and alumni to wait for Hollywood to come to them. They want to build the next generation of Hollywood here, with Georgia-grown actors, producers, and directors. Rachel Polanski, Atlanta News First.
And it's so important to lift up the next generation and support filmmaking as it transcends into the films that you love, the jobs that we need here in Georgia, the economy being boosted, so much good, long-lasting impacts. And they all start with mentorship, belief, and investment. Our Zach Summers reports.
It's really taken off.
As the festival director of Out on Film,
Mama Bear Tribe is really what turned me into an advocate.
Jim Farmer has seen firsthand the benefits of Georgia's thriving film industry.
Every year it seems like the submissions double. This year we're considering close to 1,000 films.
Out on Film is one of only 2 Oscar-qualifying LGBTQ film festivals in the country and 6 in the world. Now in its 35th year, the Atlanta-based festival has grown from 7 days to 11 with more than 150 films featured.
I remember roughly about 10 years ago, I tried to pull together a group of LGBTQ filmmakers just for a panel discussion or grouping, and I had 3 people. I was like, wow. And now, it's grown so much.
Farmer says part of his organization's mission is to attract filmmakers to the Metro.
They've loved their experience at the festival, they've loved Atlanta, and they decided to shoot their next projects here. Some of those people have moved here.
Like Dorisha Kai, whose documentary, Mama Bears, will be featured during this year's festival.
Getting into festivals is really important also because that's how we get the recognition of our peers.
Kai moved to Atlanta from New York 5 years ago, mostly for a better quality of life. However, she says the state's booming film industry was an added bonus.
And it's great to have resources to call upon and say, hey, do you have a good sound person? Hey, my PA is sick. Do you have somebody who could step in today? Whatever it is.
They're relationships that complement different sides of filmmaking.
The industry is great for film festivals because, it brings us more filmmakers. It's great for Georgia, it's great for the community, and filmmakers love being here.
Zach Summers, CBS 46 News.
And keeping those opportunities local is so important for everyone here and building up the future. Speaking of some impact, we actually had a chance this morning on Atlanta News First to talk to a name that you might recognize, none other than Jonetta Patton. If you don't know her, you might know her as Usher's mama. Well, she's also a small business owner, and she actually has a new film venture that's going to be taking place right here at Assembly Atlanta.
We are so lucky to have her here with us today. Looking gorgeous, might I add.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I'm on a cloud.
Yes, you should be. And you were just with Usher for his birthday out in Vegas a couple days ago.
Absolutely. I was out there and we got the news that he was performing the halftime show for Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm on a cloud. I can't believe that we are where we are today because there was a lot of hard work put into this, and to see it really come to fruition, to play on the largest stage. Yep. Oh my God.
Incredible. Proud mama.
Proud mama, absolutely, proud mama.
Okay, so you are here because you own several businesses in this area. One of them we know is Jay's Kitchen Culinary Incubator. People, she hit the jackpot being in this location with this business. So for people who don't know what it is it?
It's a shared kitchen with business services. We deal with culinary chefs. My passion is to help these chefs establish ownership in a sustainable business. So we have the tools right there on site, 10 minutes down the street to help these culinary entrepreneurs thrive and have sustainability.
Another part of your business is television production. And here we are at Assembly Studios. I think you might be making some of your shows right here on this site.
Absolutely.
What does this mean to have a new facility like this right here in Doraville, a place that you've known and been in business in for 30 years?
Absolutely. First of all, I feel like I'm in California. And it is a blessing to be right down the street. With my culinary entrepreneurs, it's jobs for them here, craft services.
Right.
And to just start my new business, Lion Queen Entertainment, I look forward to shooting here. So yeah, it's amazing.
Did you ever imagine when you moved your businesses here, however long ago, 2016 for the one, that this would be coming and just bring such an insane boost to this area?
I could not have imagined it. Just like his career, I could not have imagined that it would blossom the way that it has blossomed. So I'm looking forward to shooting movies here. We are talking to a lot of people right now that have really great stories. So I'm looking forward to it.
I got to ask you about being Usher's mom. I mean, here he is, one of the biggest stars in the world, and you recognized his talents early on. What are you most proud of as you watch Usher reach these heights?
People thought I was crazy in the beginning when I said, this is the next Michael Jackson. And people was like, oh, she's crazy. But I saw it, that little kid, that you just could not stop. I mean, he was tenacious at the age of 13. He knew what he wanted, and to see what has happened with his career, I just could not have imagined that it would be at this level.
Now, the
But
people
I'm
who
so
called
proud.
you crazy, what are they saying now?
Laughing.
Laughing, straight to the
Crazy,
bank. Jonetta, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Congrats
Jonetta.
on
So
all your
nice to meet
success.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
And
for
if you
having
missed
me.
any part of this interview, we will post it for you online at atlantanewsfirst.com.
She beat me to it. Make sure you check out that interview at atlantanewsfirst.com. Or hey, the free Atlanta News First app. We are digital savvy, so we know you all got phones. Download that app. We follow any and all major breaking news, developing news, and our Assembly Atlanta coverage you can find right there free on the Atlanta News First app. Now, you might be thinking about some of your favorite films right about now, and wondering whether they were shot in Atlanta or Georgia. Some favorites that I actually highlighted here, Flight, Identity Thief, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, all of my Divergent series fans, that was shot right here in Georgia. Classics like Deliverance and historical recaps like Hidden Figures. Even Marvel fans have a lot to look to Atlanta for. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Avengers Infinity War, one of my favorite Marvel movies, shot right here in Georgia. And as Arlana Harris is going to show you, there are some historical landmarks that really show up in all of your favorite films.
Respect.
We are home.
Black Panther.
Here we go.
Spider-Man.
Good evening, Peter. Love it. Love
For years, Georgians have had a front row seat to the making of major blockbuster films and TV shows.
I saw Spider-Man when he went up in the air at Rainbow.
Could you do me a favor? Hold on to that. Is this anybody's bike?
Let me tell you, the filming here is mega.
Cordelia Hunter, the director at the Office of Film and Entertainment in Atlanta, says Georgia is Hollywood of the South for a good reason.
Made in Georgia.
We have at least 14 to 20 productions on the street daily. We're all over the place.
The Cornucopia Arena in the Hunger Games Catching Fire is really the Clayton County International Park. Remember the Oakland, California apartment complex at the beginning and end of Black Panther? Well, that's actually Wheat Street Towers right here east of downtown Atlanta.
We've had Captain America, Baby Driver, Ozark, The Walking Dead, Stranger Things. The list goes on and on and on.
We caught one production crew setting up to film in a fairly popular area of Atlanta.
I can tell you it's Disney, and I can tell you it's Marvel. So our set is going to be right there on William Street.
The Secret Productions location manager says Atlanta is a perfect backdrop to transport audiences around the world.
Atlanta can look like LA, Atlanta can look like Miami, we look like London, New York. And if you go outside of Atlanta, you'll get a little countryness as well.
Lana Harris, CBS 46 News.
Atlanta, very central to film production, Assembly Atlanta, making that future a little more brighter. But did you know that Savannah is the second largest city for film production in the state of Georgia, right after Atlanta, of course? Our sister station, WTOC, takes you around some historical landmarks on coastal Georgia's Savannah.
From blockbusters to art house, Ford versus Ferrari to Forrest Gump, Savannah has been the backdrop for hundreds of films. Come along with me for a tour of some of the must-see movie spots. Starting off with one of the most iconic scenes filmed in Savannah, the bench that Forrest Gump sat on was here in Chippewa Square, but fans of the film might notice something's missing. Where's the bench? It can be found here at the Savannah History Museum. After the movie wrapped up filming, one of the prop benches was donated to the museum, where you can still see it in its full glory today. While Savannah is a background in most movies, the city plays a key role in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, a Savannah novel that was brought to the silver screen in 1997. Readers of the book may remember the Bird Girl statue on the cover, which was also featured in the film. And although she used to call Bonaventure Cemetery her home, she moved to the Telfair Academy, where you can learn all about her today.
Bird Girl is essentially Telfair's unofficial mascot. So we welcome people from all around the world to come and experience her and sit with her.
Although its wide sidewalks and overhanging lights are enough to bring people from across the land, Broughton Street once brought visitors from undersea, being transformed into a beach town for the second SpongeBob movie. This wasn't the only time that Savannah's historic district was transformed. 2019's Lady and the Tramp remake completely changed the time period of the city. It also brought in over $50 million for Savannah. Savannah's historic district isn't the only place that undergoes transformations. Tybee Island is also known to change. The island's beaches and shops were at the heart of 2010's The Last Song. In fact, a whole wedding chapel on the island was built for the movie, and it remains in operation today. Another island in the area that has appeared on screen is Hutchinson Island, which is a stand-in for France in Ford versus Ferrari. The island actually has a racing history where a 10-turn race course used to host the Savannah Speed Classic and other races. From the Bird Girl statue to choosing a box of chocolates, Savannah continues to be a popular choice for filming in Georgia. Reporting from Savannah, Ryan Tismaneski, Atlanta News First.
If you didn't know Forrest Gump was shot right here in Georgia, are you even from Georgia? Savannah, a very important historic town and also a film favorite for many. This next one is put together by my colleague Savannah Louie, and it really honors the present and being able to visit film history moments. As Savannah takes you onto the set of The Walking Dead, you might have not known that was also shot right here in Georgia, and it turns out you can still visit it today.
Horrifying moments in AMC's The Walking Dead. But fear hit historic downtown Sonoy before production even began on this street.
My being a new merchant on the street, that kind of scared me, terrified me at first. But it was such an experience.
Julie Brown, a former store owner, now happily operates Georgia Tour Company, bringing eager tourists.
They immediately scream, "Oh my gosh, I see it, I know this,"
to her hometown's iconic film locations.
This area that we're in is very prominent to that because you do see this contortionist coming down the stairs.
This 200-year-old home, a temporary set for The Walking Dead. Another element to its storied history, says homeowner Judy Beatty.
It's exciting to be part of it. I'm just a little speck in the timeline.
I think it's been one of the better things that has happened recently for Georgia.
Just a few miles down the road, Joe Stansel owns about 100 acres of land where this cabin was specially built for the 2012 film Lawless.
Well, Mr. Bondrin, do I get the job?
The amount of detail that those craftspeople involved in the movie industry, what they went to make it happen.
The property also serving as a set for photo shoots and other productions, including CBS's MacGyver and The Walking Dead.
Inside this old mill, this is where the finale of The Walking Dead Season 2 was shot. Many of the tens of thousands of people who have visited this place have been moved to tears.
And just meters away, a waterfall you'll recognize in Warner Brothers and Oprah Winfrey's The Color Purple. slated to hit theaters Christmas Day 2023.
They were great guests.
And I'm sure the paycheck doesn't hurt either.
And that didn't hurt my feelings either because we got to pay taxes.
On public property, a 10-minute drive to neighboring Fayette County, Stars Mill Waterfall in WandaVision, The Conjuring 3, and Sweet Home Alabama.
Peaceful, tranquil, get out there on the rocks. They can actually do some water scenes.
For the tens of thousands of superfans from all 7 continents drawn to the small town sites, a little surprise sparked at what the town offers beyond the backdrops.
A lot of folks are moving here. They're picking up their homes in California and Florida, and they're moving here and wanting to be a part of this.
In Sonoy, Savannah Louie, Atlanta News First.
And I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't shout out Augusta, really the home of many film moments recently, many movies that have come out. See if you can recognize these.
Augusta is known around the world for golf. Even our news station here has a putting green. But film crews are bringing a different kind of green to Augusta.
Big stars and big films are finding their way to the Garden City.
Film has definitely made an impact in Augusta. If we were to estimate conservatively, it's somewhere probably between maybe $5 and $8 million over a 5-year period.
With huge state tax credits luring production to the Peach State over the past several years, we've seen blockbusters like The Hill with Dennis Quaid.
Time to figure out what you're gonna do with the rest of your life.
Hi, boys! Suicide Squad with the old Augusta jail as a backdrop. Agent Game brought Mel Gibson to town. Here he is shooting a scene right in the middle of downtown Broad Street.
Mel Gibson's in town. Did you see Mel Gibson? And there's a pride and an excitement in that.
Remember this iconic scene from Hunger Games? Yeah, that's the dam at nearby Clarks Hill Lake. And most recently, 5-Star Murder, almost entirely shot in Augusta, some of it in News 12 studios, with meteorologist Riley Hale making a cameo.
Created jobs. It has created educational programs where we have trained up more people. It's really been a boon to our area that a lot of people don't even know the amount of money that has been spent.
But he does. Part of his job is budgeting for some of the films that shoot in Augusta. Here's the budget for one that's getting ready to start production.
At $13 million that could be spent.
Big breaks, luring big bucks for a city that's already a star in the golf world, quickly making a name for itself in this star world. In Augusta, I'm Laura Warren, Atlanta News First.
That was our sister station, WRDW, a fantastic report out of Augusta. A point that was touched upon, tax incentives being a major player in bringing filmmaking to Georgia, bringing an economic boost with it. But the big question, is Georgia camera ready for all of this investment being made? Our Sierra Cummings sat down with some film production and tax incentive advocates who are pushing for Georgia's bright future.
It sort of takes out a middleman and gets them what they need quicker.
Trey Baggerly describes himself as the go-to guy for directors and producers looking to shoot TV series or movies in Coweta County. After all, he's in charge of the local Camera Ready program. It means long before any actors come into town, Trey is in his office.
Yep, I know right where you are.
Fielding emails and calls from crews seeking potential film sites.
A lot of times I'll just jump in the car and they'll tell me what they want, and I've got some ideas and we'll go look at it.
As a large county, Coweta's landscape offers vast opportunities.
Well, on our western part of our county is very rural, horse farms, really pretty pastures. And then south and east, you've got small towns. You've got 5 or 6 old downtowns with the old main streets.
Both quaint and quite different from Atlanta, the area can transform. From adding the simple southern touch in Sweet Home Alabama,
Look at you, all fancy!
to providing the intricate setting for Guardians of the Galaxy.
I guess we're stuck together. They may come to me and say, we need a barn on a lake or a pond out in the middle of nowhere with big oak trees. I need a warehouse, I need an old home, and I'll try to help them find that.
Whether it's private properties like your home or public buildings, even setting prices and contracts, it's all organized in a constantly changing state directory. A way to help productions get what they need when they need it. Trey says his most popular location request, this historic Noonan Courthouse. The structure has been preserved for hundreds of years. Coweta is not alone in this local Camera Ready program. It exists in all 159 Georgia counties, a push that only came after state leaders advocated for more film incentives.
I don't know of other states that do it.
Hoping to make Georgia the Hollywood of the South.
It's definitely a big deal because you've got, like I said, you've got people on the ground who know the county and know a lot of the stuff that they are looking for.
As for Trey, he never gets to meet the stars, but he's one in his own right, making the magic happen.
People ask me, well, how'd you get to meet so-and-so? I said, no, I didn't meet them.
But I met the homeowners of the house.
Yeah, I know who owns that house.
And taking you back out to Assembly Atlanta, this drone video that we managed to get, really showing you an aerial view of this space taking up Doraville now. This used to be the General Motors assembly plant. If you weren't familiar with that history, that was central to Doraville community. In fact, the community built itself around the plant. A lot of jobs came from the plant, and a lot of Doraville long-term residents will tell you that it was an important part of their history. So when that plant shut down in 2008, it created a downsizing of Doraville. I mean, so many jobs were lost, so much business had to go elsewhere because of that shutdown, and through years of vision and effort and hard work, the people at Gray Television, our CEO Hilton Howell, had an idea for this space to both honor the past, look at the future, and embrace the present. And that is what you're looking at right now. Assembly Atlanta, 135 acres of that former General Motors assembly plant now being dedicated to stage space, to warehouses, to production studios and restaurants, retail businesses, and livable housing. I mean, this is everything that television and film production needs, but also so much more. An immersive eat, sleep, and play facility and place, conference rooms, businesses that can go here and utilize this 250,000 square foot area, all bringing more opportunities, more jobs to Doraville, and more local talent for film. Now, there are about 400 film and studio projects that are produced in Georgia each year. Assembly plans to meet that demand through its massive soundstage space. And as we showed you earlier, Tori Cooper took you inside, a lot of detail going into recreating some of these spaces and making them into the studios that you see, looking like New Orleans, looking like Brooklyn, Tribeca, Europe. I think we actually brought you a weather report out of New Orleans just this morning with our meteorologist Ella Dorsey, and futuristic glass buildings that will take you to worlds that you haven't even seen. And all of this coming to you from Assembly Atlanta. We're so excited to take you through all of this leading up to our big unveiling, Assembly Atlanta, being unveiled this Saturday with an amazing gala that we'll showcase on Atlanta News First Plus right here where you're watching. But as we continue to talk about Assembly Atlanta and the future that's being built, we have to look a little into the past and honor the present while looking to the future. The theme past, present, and future, very central to Assembly Atlanta, Assembly Studios, and all that is going to come out of this project. This is a timeline actually you're looking at. Construction a year ago, we broadcast to you out of Assembly Atlanta when it looked like this space that hadn't come to fruition, and now it's looking more like the vision that so many like Hilton Howell, like the Atlanta developer that you just heard from, Jay Gibson, had to make this happen. We actually want to take you out to a conversation our Atlanta News First morning team had with none other than Hilton Howell himself, as he talked about the beginning conversation and what's led to what you see today.
About 19 minutes until 10 o'clock on your Wednesday morning, and talk about it being a special morning for us here at Atlanta News First, because we are celebrating Atlanta's past, present, and future live from Assembly Atlanta Studios here in Doraville.
So we're giving you an up-close and really personal look at how far things have come. This used to be the old General Motors plant. You remember that? A lot of you may remember seeing that off of Interstate 285. Now, that 135 acres is home to where some major television studios and movie studios are assembled, and movies are going to be made here. Assembly Atlanta, of course, owned by Atlanta News First parent company, Gray Television.
And as you can see, we are now joined by Gray TV's Chief Executive Officer, Hilton Howell. It's great for you to be here this morning. Great for us to be out here too.
Listen, Brooks and Greer, could not be happier to be here. And I will tell you, you mentioned the history. I've got a vintage General Motors assembly plant from Doraville that a friend brought to us, and I couldn't think of a better moment to put it on and wear it out here. So to reflect on the history of this site and then talk about the future too.
It really is crazy when you think about the fact that it's 135 acres and that they used to assemble General Motors cars here. You know what I mean? And now when you look back here, because you walk through here quite a bit, and see you whizzing around on your golf cart through here as well. Are you just in awe and shock at what has happened?
You know, I really am. I'm actually thrilled with what's happened, but I'm actually blown away by how quickly the Gibson Company, you know, and all the subcontractors and everyone that's been working here has gotten this deal done. I mean, it's been 19 months. The first pad was paved March before last, and here we are in October, and we're getting ready to formally open it Saturday night.
Right. That's so awesome. Just think about where we were this time last year when we were broadcasting from here. We were seeing a lot of framing.
Right.
We weren't seeing beautiful glass windows and all of this stuff. So obviously a lot has changed within this year. Why now? Why was this the perfect time to create something like this?
Well, believe it or not, Georgia was lucky enough to open up a little bit earlier than other states. Thanks to our governor, and so we had to do shooting and do a number of different things, and we had to put on the American version of World Chase Tag here in Atlanta because they couldn't do it anywhere else in the country.
You're talking about after COVID, right?
During COVID.
Okay.
And so we started literally looking around for places to produce that show, and we couldn't find anything. And then when we acquired Raycom, we picked up a company called Swirl Films, and they had production facilities in Paulding County, and we just started looking around for more. And then this property became available. They were selling the note to it, and so one thing led to another, and now here we are.
And you and Michael Thurman go back a long way, the CEO, and so you called Michael Thurman and you said, hey, can I talk with you over lunch? And all of a sudden, here we are. Talk a little bit about what we're going to be able to see here. We've been showing some of it. You know, Don Shipman's talked about the huge park where the public's going to be able to come. Yes. There's going to be living space here, but talk about these huge production studios too.
Well, really the first thing, I mean, the engine that's going to drive all of this is the movie studios.
Okay.
And so we're going to open the rest of it up to other facilities, but all of those facilities are going to be designed aesthetically so that they are filmable sort of places, because we really want to have movies and TV shows shot all over Georgia, not necessarily here. You have certain scenes that have to be seen or shot at a stage. And so the reason we did the facades, and even the facades here, which were sort of our version, these glass buildings of sort of a modern world, and something that's not, that common, we want them to show Georgia, but when they need to do something else, we want to do it here. So we have the facades, we have the interior, we have the stages, and then everything we're going to build out there will be filmable, but it'll also be something that will be accessible to the public. I did see Don's report this morning. I mean, we're going to have a beautiful 5-acre park. We'll have a performance venue at the end of it that is in the process of being built. And so what I'm hoping to be able to do is have folks come bring their blankets and their picnic baskets out and watch the movies that are produced here in Doraville. Right. And we have the exhibits of what's going on and the premiere locally of those movies here for all the community. So.
That's so awesome. And we know that it requires a lot of people to run a place like this. How many jobs are we talking as far as people, the crews, not just within the film industry, but even people who are out here making all this happen?
I think right off the bat, the number that we anticipate is 4,000 jobs. And most of those will be through Universal, our partner that are here on the set. But beyond that, as you look at the production and all the rest of the crews that come with that, it may be up to 9,000 sort of individual jobs just here out of what we've done in this portion of Assembly Atlanta. So we're very excited about that.
It's going to be super cool. You got the big grand opening this weekend, right?
We
So this place behind us is going to be lit up.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to be wild.
It's going to be
It's going to be
great.
a party, Hilton Howell.
It is. Well, we are throwing it for it. This is an opening for the people of Georgia and Atlanta. And so I know that you guys are going to air a red carpet show on Peachtree TV live, and then we will be carrying that nationwide on local news live over the top. And then each of our individual stations in 114 markets are going to be putting a little special on. And so we'll get a chance to show Assembly off, show Atlanta off, and show Doraville off, and show Georgia off.
Well, they're working hard to make it happen, I can tell you that. Got
Wow.
people in hard hats all around us. Thank you so much,
Thank
Hilton
you
Howell.
both. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you joining us.
Yes, absolutely.
Congrats
Thank
on
you.
everything out here. This is good to see for sure. And be sure to download the free Atlanta News First app to watch this interview again in case you tuned in slightly late. Yeah, definitely make sure you look at that. And then at 10 o'clock, till noon, we are going to be on Atlanta News First Plus for more exclusive stories on Assembly Atlanta, so be sure to check all of that out.
Better Call Harry's really good school of acting. Take one.
My name is Myron McGee.
All right, everybody, good afternoon to you. I'm Savannah Louie with Atlanta News First anchor for the 10 p.m. show. Glad to have you with us this afternoon here. We are doing a quick little rundown on Assembly Atlanta. Happy to talk about this exciting project that has been in the works now for just about 2 years over in Doraville. We've been tracking it very closely. Our parent company, Gray Television, you just heard from CEO of Gray Television, Hilton Howell there, explaining a little bit about what Assembly Atlanta is and all the opportunities it's going to be bringing here to the metro Atlanta area. Now, if you haven't seen Assembly Atlanta yet, for yourself, I know we've included a lot of content if you've been following along with our streaming throughout the week, or maybe if you've been watching our shows in the evening, or even just taking a look at our website, atlantanewsfirst.com, or our app as well. We have a lot of content on there, which really features Assembly Atlanta, but if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, we're going to take you there right now. Okay, let's see. All right, what you're looking at here, this is one of a couple of different facades here at Assembly Atlanta. By the way, this is going to be a massive facility, more than 135 acres. You might remember this was actually built in the site of the former General Motors assembly plant, which was a major producer of cars in the Atlanta area several years back. But since starting in 2021, when Gray Television bought the property, it's become something totally new. Take a look at some of the construction. This all over the past nearly 2 years now. Obviously, we're planning on creating film studios here and plenty of other production utilities, but there's also going to be a lot more than that. Maybe you're not in the film and production industry yourself, but you'll still be able to use this place. They're calling it a live, work, play space. There's going to be hotels, restaurants, conference spaces, parks for the public. I know that they're talking about having concerts and performances out at that park for the public to enjoy, and so much more. And of course, the film and TV and production industry here in Georgia is just huge. We've heard people call it the Hollywood of the South. We've heard people call it Yollywood. Plenty of fun names here for a good reason. A lot of opportunity to produce shows and movies and so much more here in not just Metro Atlanta, but throughout the entire state. We'll get to some of that in just a little bit here. But I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the opportunities that we've seen so far here in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. You might be familiar. For this one, this next story here, I'm gonna take you a little bit further into the metro area. I want to introduce you to a spot that has a lot of recognition here. You might remember or know of the Silver Skillet. It is an Atlanta icon, not only for the food, but because it's been a site for plenty of commercials, other productions, movies, and films as well. So our anchor, Tori Cooper, is going to take us inside the Silver Skillet to give us a little backdrop into what exactly this restaurant is and its role that it's played here in the Georgia entertainment industry.
Tell him I'm going to bring him his box.
With time comes change. But if you sit right here,
the booths are genuine Naga hide with the avocado and terracotta.
You may feel a bit of nostalgia from an era like the 50s or 60s.
We're just in a time warp and the customers love that.
But for Teresa Breckenridge,
breakfast is busy.
It's business as usual.
We opened in 1956, and then I personally took over in 1988 when my father passed away. So I've been here since '88.
For over 60 years, the Silver Skillet Diner has been known for its savory biscuits and the taste of a time period.
This is actually authentic. The boomerang patterns, the windows on the diner are the big shark fin windows.
For filmmakers, it's the set of an old-fashioned diner made for the big screen.
Directors and producers, they're given instructions, go find a roadside diner or a small town diner. So when they come in here, they just go, oh my God, everything's ready. We don't even have to dress it. It's done.
For decades, the Skillet has been serving up the perfect spot for a diner scene in major movies, commercials, and TV shows.
The best known film that was done was Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington. Anchorman 2. Yeah, that was good. Trouble with the Curve, Hank Aaron's Story, I Want You Back, Ozark, we've been in Ozark.
And the list of box office hits is almost as long as her list of Southern cooking items on her home-style menu. She says the diner is not just providing money-making shots for filmmakers and their crew, it's also feeding back into Atlanta's economy.
The people flying in from California, they're bringing money in. The hotels make money. Limousines, taxi drivers, Ubers, whoever transportation is. You've got the city of Atlanta making a ton of money. We have brought probably $9 billion in to Georgia with the film industry.
A contribution and legacy she hopes to continue.
I cannot tell you how happy and proud I am that I've been a part of this.
And again, that was Tori Cooper there reporting with that story. All right, I know that story focused a lot on what's going on here in the metro Atlanta area, specifically the heart, the midtown area of Atlanta. But I want to take us back out to Assembly Atlanta for this next piece that we did. This aired earlier this morning, and it's really a great one. If you missed it, we're going to air it again because I think it gives a lot of insight into how Assembly Atlanta is going to be helping Doraville, and particularly the people who live there. We spoke with one woman who you are going to recognize. She not only has her own business out in the Doraville area, but she also has a son who is extremely talented, a famous singer. You might have heard of him. His name is Usher. So we spoke with Usher's mom, who, yes, again, has that business out in Doraville. She gives insight into what opportunities Assembly Atlanta is going to be doing for the area, for the people who live in it, and how we're hoping to see things progress over the next several years. Here's that interview.
We are so lucky to have her here with us today. Looking gorgeous, might I add.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I'm on a cloud.
Yes, you should be. And you were just with Usher for his birthday out in Vegas a couple days ago.
Absolutely. I was out there and we got the news that he was performing the halftime show for Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm on a cloud. I can't believe that we are where we are today because there was a lot of hard work put into this, and to see it really come to fruition, to play on the largest stage. Yep. Oh my God.
Incredible. Proud mama.
Proud mama, absolutely, proud mama.
Okay, so you are here because you own several businesses in this area. One of them we know is Jay's Kitchen Culinary Incubator. People, she hit the jackpot being in this location with this business. So for people who don't know what it is, what is it?
It's a shared kitchen with business services. We deal with culinary chefs. My passion is to help these chefs establish ownership in a sustainable business. So we have the tools right there on site, 10 minutes down the street to help these culinary entrepreneurs thrive and have sustainability.
Another part of your business is television production. And here we are at Assembly Studios. I think you might be making some of your shows right here on this site.
Absolutely.
What does this mean to have a new facility like this right here in Doraville, a place that you've known and been in business in for 30 years?
Absolutely. First of all, I feel like I'm in California. And it is a blessing to be right down the street, with my culinary entrepreneurs. It's jobs for them here, craft services.
Right.
And to just start my new business, Lion Queen Entertainment, I look forward to shooting here. So yeah, it's amazing.
Did you ever imagine when you moved your businesses here, however long ago, 2016 for the one, that this would be coming and just bring such an insane boost to this area?
I could not have imagined it. Just like his career, I could not have imagined that it would blossom the way that it has blossomed. So I'm looking forward to shooting movies here. We are talking to a lot of people right now that have really great stories. So I'm looking forward to it.
I got to ask you about being Usher's mom. I mean, here he is, one of the biggest stars in the world, and you recognized his talents early on. What are you most proud of as you watch Usher reach these heights?
People thought I was crazy in the beginning when I said, this is the next Michael Jackson. And people was like, oh, she's crazy. But I saw it, that little kid, that you just could not stop. I mean, he was tenacious at the age of 13. He knew what he wanted, and to see what has happened with his career, I just could not have imagined that it would be at this level.
Now, the
But
people
I'm
who
so
called
proud.
you crazy, right? What are they saying now?
Laughing.
Laughing, straight to the
Crazy,
bank. Jonetta, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Congrats
Jonetta.
on all
So
your
nice to meet
success.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
And
for
if you
having
missed
me.
any part of this interview, we will post it for you online at AtlantaNewsFirst.com.
And wasn't that really interesting to hear Usher's mom give some insight there into how we're expecting things at Assembly Atlanta to really impact the entire community? Also really cool to hear her talk about her son there. I'm a huge Usher fan. I don't know about you guys, but either way, I was like, we got to re-air that interview because it is so cool to hear that type of perspective. All right, guys, so if you've been joining us all week long, you might have noticed that our newscasts on Atlanta News First, they look a little bit different. That's because we are now broadcasting for the entire week out at Assembly Atlanta. I want to go ahead and give you a behind-the-scenes live look. This is going to be where our newscast is going to be airing starting at 3 o'clock today. All right, this, you see a big head in the lower left-hand corner of your screen here. This is Steve Franklin. He's our chief photographer. He's putting the finishing touches on the newscast here as we get ready for our anchors, Tracy Hutchins and Carly Barnett, to take their seats here in just about 15 minutes or so. But what I also want to direct your attention to is in the background. You can see a number of people walking around, getting those final touches ready for that grand opening finale of Opening Assembly Atlanta. I've been down there for the past several days myself, anchoring the 10 p.m. newscast, and the place is really fantastic. It is a huge property. Again, we're talking about 135 acres here. What you're looking at now is some of that construction that we've been following over the past couple of years here. But overall, this is really a fantastic facility. And while they are almost done, they are still putting the finishing touches on a lot of these buildings. For example, you might see workers still running around trying to really get the final touches, the final polish, shall we say, on some of these beautiful buildings. Already, though, we're seeing a lot of the lighting go up, a lot of the structures completely finished. If you join us for our newscast later this evening, you're going to be actually able to see some of those sets for yourself. I know that we've had our entire team of meteorologists out there as well throughout the entire week, and those meteorologists have really been instrumental in showing off different parts of Assembly Atlanta. So if you can, see if you can join us for maybe one or two of our newscasts, because those meteorologists, they've literally been bouncing around to different locations on the property. It's a really good way to not only get the weather for the week, but also to get a behind-the-scenes peek at some of the exciting things that Assembly Atlanta has to offer. Now, what I want to do now, I want to take us back about, let's see, maybe about 18 hours ago. We're going to go back in time to last night. This is a story that aired at 11 o'clock on Atlanta News First, and it was It's one that I think is just so symbolic of the opening of Assembly Atlanta. You know, there is a big, beautiful sign, all lit up. It says Assembly. This to me is just really a sign of the new beginning that we're seeing over at Assembly Atlanta. And in a way, it feels so much more than just, you know, letters on a big board here. From here, I'm going to let our anchor, Tori Cooper, explain not only what went down last night, but also a little bit about what it a little bit about its significance. Here we go.
Sometimes I'll sit out here at night as everybody's locking up and people are going home. And this last week, a couple of times, I absolutely found myself getting a little emotional.
For Assembly developer Jay Gibson, it's something special to watch finally come to light.
Here you've been just pouring everything into it, and then you look up at these letters and you just sit back and go, wow.
After more than 2.5 years of planning, envisioning, and building, Assembly Atlanta is finally unveiling its new and iconic sign lighting up the old General Motors plant bridge that was originally created in 1945. What once was a place where GM auto workers walked to access the car assembly plant.
So the unique thing about the bridge is it is a part of history. It's a part of the plant itself. It was iconic in the day, and so we're going to keep that, and we're going to make it even more iconic.
Is now a symbol of what will be assembled next at Assembly Studios.
Action!
It offers an opportunity for everybody, from the creative storytellers to the folks that make a living with their creative hands.
Gray Television CEO Hilton Howell is excited to welcome hundreds of film and television makers to the set.
And I do hope that 100 years from now, Georgia's a permanent place where films and television shows are made.
And now, the lights are finally on, and the show is just beginning.
This was a monument to Georgia to show the world what Georgia could do, and that was our goal from day one.
I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
All right, yeah, that was pretty sweet, wasn't it? I know we've shown you a lot of footage of what Assembly Atlanta looks like, and we've talked a little bit about what it means for the community, but none of this would be possible without the help of some amazing developers. Just to give you guys a little bit of background information here, this site, the former GM plant, it has been a massive undertaking here. We know that in 2021, Gray Television acquired the property, and at the very end of 2021, in December 2021, that's when the last warehouse was removed off that property. 1 month later, in January 2022, that's when they had the first concrete pour, and since then, they've been working so diligently. Almost at times it feels like nonstop, especially this week. I feel like they have people there 24/7 just really working on this fantastic facility. And again, none of it would be possible without Jay Gibson of the Gibson Company, the developer who has helped put this whole project together. And with that, I want to let Jay Gibson take it from here. We did an interview with him earlier, and I really want to re-air it because his insight is just pretty amazing. You know, you wonder what kind of mind goes into creating and putting this vision into action, into real life here. So without any further ado, let's introduce you to Jay, and he's going to talk a little bit about how this whole thing was possible.
We've got Jay Gibson joining us. He is the Assembly Studios developer. It is great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So take us back, not even too long ago, but when all of this was just dirt out here. What was that like, and what was going through the mind?
It was really a vision, and it was a big vision at that. And so we were able to come together with an amazing team, and over really 18 short months, do this whole thing, and it was a team effort.
That's what's so remarkable to me is we were out here a year ago. Remember, we were in that big tent, and there was so much construction. It was dirt. It was really just a framing for a lot of these buildings. You guys have worked 24/7 overtime. Yeah, it's kind of funny to have these guys working behind us with their hard hats and their painting. What do you think when you see all that going on?
Pride.
Yeah.
Really, it's just you look. Throughout this whole project, all the teams that were involved and the way that they bought into what we were trying to do, and it would not have happened without it. And we focused strongly on Georgia. Hilton's vision from day one, we said we're going to show the world what Georgia can do. And so it's a very heavily Georgia done project, and it's just pride.
And it looks like it. When you drive onto this campus, we always say that it feels like something new is being done every day, and we've only been out here for just this week. I can imagine what goes through your head when you're talking about more than a year, seeing it start from nothing and now become this. When you come out here, and when you see people who are coming out here, what do you want them to see, since you're the developer?
Wow. I just want them to see just this amazing thing, and I want them to see really a project that is, I think, the beginning of a new phase here in Georgia. I want them to be proud of it. I want them to be proud of what's happening here in Georgia, and I want them to look at the opportunity for all Georgians. I mean, this industry is an industry open to anybody that has desire and talent that wants to do it, and hopefully this is a home where it all comes to fruition.
I love that. See that assembly sign?
Oh, gosh. I got emotional over that.
Did you really?
I really did.
Really?
It was
How come?
Well, here we've just, our blood and sweat and tears for 2 years, and you see this sign light up, and it's just kind of like, you're almost there. And I stepped back. I think that was the first time it was dark, it was quiet, Hilton and I were standing there, and it just hit me, and I kind of got emotional about it.
What always amazes me when you see things like that is knowing that there were steps to get here.
Right.
Just take us behind the scenes, just a little bit of what that process even looks like, because I think if you're just getting renovations done at home, how crazy that can get. So when you're talking about a big project like this, I know that's a lot to take on.
It was, and it started with a vision. As a matter of fact, our land planners, H. Gore, we started day one, and they did initial land plan. It was called The Idea of the Idea, and we actually have it framed in Hilton's office. And that idea morphed, and we brought in the architects, and we brought in the engineers, and we brought in the GCs, and the whole thing just took a life of its own. And it was really managing that process. And we had 88 acres under concrete.
Right.
Wow.
We ended up crushing it all on site, no haul off. We used it for the GAB, the base, and the roads and everything.
Right.
And so it was just managing a process that kind of grew. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and we just had to keep our hands around it.
So this is phase one?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So phase one is, when do you think that's going to be wrapped up?
After the gala, I think we have about 45 more days to really,
nice.
yeah, to
well,
get
as fast
to the
as y'all
end.
are moving, you're going to get it done. And then starts phase two.
Then phase two.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's going to be amazing. It already is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I know you're proud, and we appreciate you being here.
Well, we appreciate y'all being
and we
here.
appreciate the donuts you brought this morning.
Jay Gibson, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning, and congrats on everything out.
We're so lucky to have her here with us today.
All right, guys, that was pretty cool, wasn't it? Again, that was Jay Gibson, one of the developer, for Assembly Atlanta, working so hard over the past couple of years there to get the property and the facility where it needs to be, just in time for the grand opening this week. All right, guys, with that, this is really the week, again, that we've been looking forward to for years now. When I say we, I mean not only, us at Atlanta News First, but also I think people in the Doraville area, I think the community up there, and I think people who are really involved in the entertainment and film industry here in Georgia. And, not even just Georgia. I mean, the film industry, it impacts so many people from across the country, across the world. And so what we're doing here in Doraville, it really just is going to have a major ripple effect and have the potential to create so much good and opportunity for a lot of different people, thousands, tens of thousands of people. Now, all this hard work has really come down to this final week for Assembly Atlanta. We're calling this Assembly Week here at Atlanta News First, but I think the big cherry on top of the ice cream or the cake or whatever you want to call it here is there is going to be a red carpet event this weekend. And a number of us here from Atlanta News First are going to be very lucky to go and attend and get to meet some of the folks who have been instrumental in putting the event together. We're also going to be talking with some local and non-local celebrities as well, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. We have Atlanta News First Don Shipman, who gives us a bit of a preview here into that red carpet event and what we're going to expect. I actually haven't seen this story yet, so I'll be watching it for the first time, as you do myself. So we're going to be in this one together. Here's Don Shipman.
The lights are being hung, the sound is being checked, and the food is being delivered, all in anticipation of Assembly Atlanta's grand opening gala.
The red carpet's going to be rolled down the main street. So you get out of the car, there's a red carpet.
As Ella prepares for hosting duties of this Saturday's main event, which will be streamed live on ANF Plus and Gray TV's Local News Live, construction crews are busy installing the finishing touches to the Sky Lounge, which oversees the stage where some of Atlanta's finest will perform.
Killer Mike's going to be there. CeeLo Green is performing. Sheryl Crow, Gladys Knight. So kind of music for everyone.
This invite-only event will host more than 2,500 guests. An Assembly soundstage and back lot will serve as the event space.
Bar captain, serving captain.
Catering an event this size is a huge undertaking. Sterling Culinary Management is deploying nearly 300 staffers, bartenders, barbacks, servers, offering up Georgia-centric cuisine with an Atlanta flair.
So we have a lot of great Georgia restaurants involved, a lot of great food trucks in Atlanta. So we have charcuterie, we have raw bars, so we have tons of different things and a lot of great handmade cocktails, and of course local Georgia beers as well.
Patrick Quinn, you briefly touched upon this.
Who doesn't like those local beers, right? A lot of good opportunities, not only to celebrate the final steps for putting Assembly Atlanta together, but also for celebrating a lot of good things. Atlanta, Georgia, and metro area Atlanta when it comes to productions, movies, films, TV shows, entertainment, all that jazz. All right, guys, if you have enjoyed our content today, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining me here at the Atlanta News First Alert Desk. It is always a pleasure to be up here with you. If you want to see more, if this has just piqued your interest in what we're doing here in the Doraville area and how it's going to be creating a pretty impressive ripple effect across the metro Atlanta area and across the state even, we have more stories to tell. I'm going to send you now to atlantanewsfirst.com or the Atlanta News First app. Either of those are great resources. And we have a number of stories. You can see those news stories in the middle of your screen here. You see weather to the right, but on your left hand, for example, this big box here, this is just one of the many stories we've done here. This is Alan Devlin's story on the Georgia film industry and some of the history behind it. But we have a ton of content from our reporters, from our anchors, and our photographers, our amazing team here to really get us in the spirit of all things Assembly Atlanta and production here in the Georgia area. Let's see if we can go down. Okay, here's another one. Georgia lawmakers review state's TV and film credit. That's by our investigative reporter, Rachel Polanski. Let's see if we have anything else on our front homepage here. I know there's a lot of stuff. Here on the right-hand side, you can see that story we just aired for you. Usher's mom talks business, new film ventures at Assembly Atlanta. If you like that story, you want to share it maybe with some of your friends, we have that as well. So again, a lot of opportunities here to learn more about what we're doing at Assembly Atlanta, the impact it's going to have on the metro Atlanta area and the state as a whole, and then also where we've been in the past when it comes to film and production here in the state of Georgia, because this has been a growing industry for quite some time now. Now, if you are not familiar with how we've been doing our newscast lately, I want to take you back outside to Assembly Atlanta. You can see our anchors Tracy Hutchins and Carly Barnett getting ready for that 3 p.m. newscast. Ready to start here in about 30 seconds or so. Join us all afternoon, all evening long for the rest of the week. We'll be doing all of our shows out there. And until then, I again want to say thank you so much for joining us here on Atlanta News First ANF Plus. All right, we'll see you in just a bit.